So one of the first things you want to do when you get a deer and get ready to skin it is remove the lower leg. You can do this with a knife by cutting into the joints, both in the front and back legs. If you know where to cut, you cut right into the right place, all the way around to the joint, and then you just snap it and twist it, and it'll come right off. On this deer, all four legs have already been cut off, lower legs, so I won't demonstrate that this time. But you can do it with a knife, or you can saw through it with a bone saw, whichever you prefer. Something I like to do when I'm in the field, when I'm field dressing, is remove the scent glands, particularly if it's a buck, because these things get a real musty urine type smell, and I've eaten people's deer meat that tasted just like pee, because they touch the scent glands and then touch their meat and they contaminate the meat with it. So I like to remove these before I even bring the deer in the shop. This wasn't my deer, so they're still on there. This is a doe. The does don't smell as badly. The bucks really reek, but it's good to remove those. So if you're removing those, you just start with a knife. And this one's been cut through, so it's not the best example, but you just start with your knife right up above it, cutting right under the skin, and just work down around it to remove it without cutting into the gland and contaminating your meat. That's all there is to taking the scent glands off, and that will keep your meat from contaminating. Now when you're going to hang a deer, let's pretend that whether scent glands are on or off, you want to get this skin down. If you leave the fur on here, and then you stick your gambrel hook in to hang the deer by the rear legs, then it's very hard to skin around that hook. The hook becomes embedded in there like this, and you've got all the weight of the deer on it, and you're trying to cut around it, you'll hit your knife blade on the metal and dull your knife. You don't want to do that. You want to be able to get this skin before you hang it up. So the first step is to go ahead and skin these tendons out, and these tendons are very strong, and you can hang the deer's weight will easily be supported by those. If you mess up and cut this tendon, then it's hard to hang the deer, so you want to be very careful that you don't slice through this rear part, this tendon. If you leave it intact, it's very strong. So we will first skin these out, okay, so that we can hang them without any hair on the gambrel. So you just very quickly and easily make little slices, try not to cut into the meat, and just go all the way around the tendon. Very quick and easy. Once you get all the way around, like that, you got a little handle, and now you can just simply pull the skin down. Just like that. But since somebody's already put their metal tag in, we'll slice that piece of skin so that comes out. And that leg is ready for a gambrel hook to be inserted into it without any fur being in the way. And I will do the same thing quickly to the other side. Okay, this is one of the few places where I actually use a knife on a hide, and that's cutting up the rear legs. That's cutting up the rear legs. And you have to cut the hide here. Most people cut the hide here in the inside somewhere, but if you're wanting a brain tan to get the best shaped hide, and you're wanting a strong hide that you can lace up where the holes won't tear out when you have it laced in the frame, the traditional way and the best way to do this is follow the hairline. Right where the dark hair and the white hair meet is where you want to cut. Now the way this one's been field dressed, I've already removed a lot of skin, so it's kind of going to mess my shape up a little bit. Typically you'd have more skin here on the inner side of the flank, and then when you cut this you get a better shape. But just for demonstration purpose, I'm going to cut this right where the hairline meets, and this is where you always want to cut it. It makes a better shape and a little bit stronger of a hide for lacing it up if you're going to tan it. So you just want to barely work your knife under the skin. If you cut in too deep, you're cutting into the meat and contaminating the meat, so you don't want to do that. And you just want to get it right under the skin and just follow that line right up without slicing into the meat. Sharper your knife, the better for doing this. It zips right up. You got a sharp knife, you have a dull knife, you have to work a little bit more to get this done. So we slit that side. Now we'll come over and slit this side. Come straight over. And just follow the line where the hair meets. Working that blade right under the skin. And this deer I'm working on has been hanging in a cooler for several days. So So on a fresh, warm deer, everything comes off quicker and easier. This one's one of the more difficult ones that you'll get because of the conditions of the deer and how long it's been sitting, but it's still not too bad. Okay, so now we've made those slits. Okay, so at this point, we have cut off the lower legs, front and back. We have peeled the skin back by these tendons on the rear so we can hang this metal gambrel in here without the hair getting stuck in between there, making it difficult to skin. So we've done that, and we have cut two places, just right under the skin, being careful not to cut into the meat, right where the dark hair and the white hair meet, down the back legs. So we made these cuts, and now there's only going to be about 1 or 2 more cuts I'm going to make on this thing. And you don't need to work the hide a lot with a knife. You want to put it away, because if you use a knife, you're going to be constantly cutting into the meat, introducing hair and bacteria into the meat, making it dirty. And you're also going to put score marks into your hide. And score marks weaken a hide. When you go to tan it and soften it, those places will not get as soft, and oftentimes holes will develop in there because the hide is thinner and weaker. So you do not want to put score marks in your hide. So you don't want to use a knife anymore if you have to. There's 2 or 3 cuts such as these that we have to make, and that's it. Everything else can be done with my hands. We're not going to use a knife for anything else. Okay, so we've done that. The next step I like to do that saves time and makes skinning easier is to remove the head. So the next thing we're going to do is remove the head off this deer. Okay, this is another place to make a cut. Removing the head is very easy. You can do it simply with a knife, just as you can by removing the legs with a knife, or you can saw the head off, just as you can saw the legs off. However, even if you're going to saw the head off with a saw, you need to cut through the hide and the meat with your knife, because if you go sawing into that meat, it's going to clog up the teeth of your saw. It's going to be very difficult to saw through. So even if you're going to saw, you want to cut all the way down to the bone, then saw. But there's really no need to do that. If you cut in the right places, you don't need to saw at all. You can use your knife and you can pop that head right off. So you want to go right behind the ear. Then you want to cut all the way around. The circumference all the way down till you feel the spine. Okay? And then down at the bottom, you want to cut right underneath the jaw there. Around the throat, cutting all the way through the windpipe, esophagus, and down to the spine of the deer. Okay. There is a joint located right here. If you cut properly and hit that joint, it's often referred to as the atlas joint, then you can snap the deer's head right off without a saw. So I've cut completely around. Okay. Now if I was going to use a bone saw, I could saw through right now, or I take the deer's head, if I've cut properly, tilt it backwards, give it a jerk and a twist. Okay, and it comes right off. There's a piece of connective tissue on this, but that's it. That's all there is to taking a deer's head off. You don't need to use a saw. You don't need to spend a lot of time. You just cut a circumference around right behind the base of the ear and right down behind the jaw, all the way through to the bone, then lift it up and twist it and snap it. It pops right off. Very simple. The reason I remove the head is because it is much easier to pull the skin off the deer if the head's off of it, instead of trying to cut around the head while it's hanging there. It's easier to just get it off, get it out of the way. You don't have to worry about it. For the next step, we want to have things where it's easy to work. We don't want to be down there on the ground all the time, so I'm going to winch this deer up a little bit, and I'm going to make 1 or 2 more cuts, and then that's it for the knife. So we're going to winch it up. Here we go. Okay, you saw me using that winch. It saves the back if you're doing a lot of deer. Also, you can take a deer hide off by using a winch. You get the hide started. You can put a golf ball or something under the hide, tie a rope around it, anchor it to the floor, and then winch it up, and it'll pull it right off. But even if you're going to do that, you need to make these cuts that I'm showing now and loosen the hide up a little bit, or you can tear your hide in half or damage the deer meat. You can rip a leg off or something with a power winch, or you can even do the same thing with a pulley in a pickup truck. That's an easy way to skin, but if you want a good hide and you want good meat, you still need to set up the pull before you pull it. I can pull them just about as fast if it's a nice warm deer by hand as I can, bothering with the winch or the truck, so I don't really mess with it unless it's a great big monster deer. Okay, so we've removed the head. Now we're going to want to split this skin all the way down the sternum, following the dead center line of the body, and all the way down to the end of the neck. If you don't go all the way down, it makes it harder to skin the neck off, so we're going to work it all the way down. Just like we did on the legs, we're going to stick the knife right under the skin, not going any deeper, and we're just going to work it down, right down the dead center. Okay? Okay, so that's it. At this point, I will not be using the knife again on this skin until it's after the deer. That's all the cutting I'm going to do. The only other cut that I'll have to make is when I'm finished. I will be cutting these front legs open so we can fold the hide out completely.